Well, Bungie was back this week and we get our first real good look at Strand. Bungie are spilling the beans on the new Darkness subclass. So let's dive right into that article. Bungie say, Guardians prepare to unlock the mysteries of Strand. Destiny 2 Lightfall, players will gain access to a brand new elemental power to add to the current lineup of Void, Arc, Solar, and Stasis. Like its predecessors, Strand will offer players exciting new abilities and powers to dominate the battlefield, along with new wrinkles that promise to change the way Guardians think about traversal and combat. With Strand, Guardians will be wielding the fabric of the universe in ways that be a formidable threat to anyone who stands in their way. Strand trailer for Lightfall shows all three Guardian classes using Strand to deadly effect and provides an action-packed overview of what to expect. Well, here we are taking a deeper look into what players can expect from Strand, including a class-by-class breakdown of how each Guardian class will be plucking at strings of the universe to play sweet destructive music. Okay, next up we got Threads Make the Guardians. So from the Neo-drenched streets of Neptune's secret city of Neomuna, the Guardians soaring through the sky by grappling to an enemy spaceship. It's been clear from the start that Lightfall is different. Yes, things are coming to a head in the penultimate chapter of the Light and Darkness saga, but Lightfall's influences and inspirations prove that there's been plenty of room in the team to let loose, to revel in their creativity and craft, and also to have some fun. One of the touchstones of the team drew from was the bombast and flair of the 1980s action cinema. Yeah, think of an era of film where no explosion was too big and no action set piece was too over the top. That aesthetic informed much of Lightfall's tone, and it certainly had a big influence on Strand itself, even before it was formally known as Strand. The team had many concepts for the Damage Type 5, as it was originally called in development, before aligning all the feature set and the lore that brought it to life. We had a couple of frontrunner concepts for a while, said Destiny designer Kevin Yanis. Part of my desire was to have something more astral in the game. Now, Strand also aligned really well with the fantasy of the product, 80s action hero. As Yanis put it, there wasn't really a single aha moment where all the threads of Strand fell neatly into place. Instead, it was a result of the continuous dialogue with the team about what would make for exciting gameplay, what would make sense from a narrative standpoint, and how they could make those ideas manifest in the game. Through these discussions, Damage Type 5 slowly morphed into something a little bit more specific, then called Dark Telekinesis, which evolved even further, eventually manifesting in what you see today. We had loads of conversations around where the weaves came from and trying to reinforce the physical language for how it manifests and how it looks, and how to make it feel from the same Darkness family as Stasis, Yanis said. The more the team talked, the more concepts and evocative language that describes Strand, with terms and descriptions like weaves, tangles, and universe strings of consciousness, well, that all came to be. It's everyone building on everyone else's ideas, said designer Eric Smith. How we chose to implement these things affect how we could talk about it and vice versa. Like weaving objects instead of spawning objects or summoning objects, it becomes part of that aesthetic. Well, next up, we got deadly definitions. So, to understand Strand, let's first start with some of the vocabulary. Creating an object using Strand is weaving. Defeating an enemy affected by Strand will unravel them, and then disconnecting their life force from a weave and creating a tangle. Left behind after a Strand debuffed enemy is defeated, a tangle is a swirling bundle of Strand fibers, and these bundle of Strand will explode when shot, causing area damage to nearby enemies. Guardians can also pick up tangles and throw them to deadly effect. On the debuff side, there are three new terms to know, so suspend, unravel, and sever. First of all, we've got suspend. A suspended PvE enemy is lifted off the ground for a brief duration and is essentially disabled. And in PvP, suspended players are lifted off the ground but can still move, albeit slowly, to fire their weapon and fight back. Next, we got Unravel. So attacking an unraveled enemy will cause threads to burst out of the target and attack other nearby targets. Once hit, that target will also become unraveled. And finally, we have Sever. So a severed enemy is less capable of affecting the material world, reducing their damage output as a result. The major buff coming with Strand is Woven Mail. With this ability, the Guardian is sheathed in a protective mesh of Strand matter, reducing incoming damage. Note that in PvP, Woven Mail will only reduce damage taken on the body, head damage and melee damage will continue as normal. Next up, we got Thwip Thwip. So, one of the most exciting new abilities in the Guardian Strand toolkit is the Grapple. And with this ability, players can press the grenade button and their Guardian will weave a hook from Strand matter, which they can grab onto an anchor point. Grappling hook will then begin contracting, pulling the Guardian along. And Strand's grapple can create its own grapple points out of thin air, so you can always propel yourself through the sky, even if there's not a solid surface there to latch onto. Guardians are also going to be able to execute melee strikes during or the end of a grapple, known as a grapple melee, which will deal bonus damage, unravel an enemy, and also push them backwards. So when we were developing the concept around ropes and string, we felt like it was the perfect opportunity to add grapple into the game, said Smith. You never want to shoehorn something in for the sake of interaction that isn't natural. It has to be the right time and the right situation, and the stars align for something like that here. Well, Yanis said Strand really came to life for him when the team started seeing the power of the grapple when combined with the other elements of Strand. When we got things like Tangles online, we started realising the gameplay here is incredibly novel, interesting, and new when you have to do all these quick context switches between grappling and slamming and throwing a tangle. All these things can happen in really quick succession, and that rewards the player for having high APM, that's actions per minute, which is not really a thing we've had in the game before. Now, Smith picks up that thought and runs with it, so I defeat an enemy with my melee ability and then I unwind into a tangle. I grapple onto the tangle, which refunds my grapple, and then I snatch the tangle out of midair. Then I hurl that tangle at a group of enemies in the distance, grappling onto the tangle again while it flies and pulls me through the air behind it. As that tangle nears a group of enemies, I slam downward out of my grapple to suspend a lone enemy who splits off from the group, while that tangle slams into the rest of the group and explodes. There's loads of these really cool dynamic interactions built into Strand, and that makes it all feel really, really unique. Now, from the start with these new ability options, it will change the way that you play, but it doesn't end there. Each Guardian class will interact and wield Strand in a unique way, and the new abilities and powerful perks to explore and customize. So here is how it all breaks down. Well, first of all, we've got the Warlock Broodweaver. The Warlock is our Strand minion master, said Smith, when explaining how Destiny 2's Master of All Things Magical will utilise Strand. To understand how Warlocks will bend Strand to their will, you have to understand the Threadlings. Threadlings are explosive minions woven from Strand matter, he said. Now, the Warlock Broodweaver, being the cerebral type, is more in tune with the Threadlings than the other classes. All Threadlings will run forward, jump on enemies, and explode, but only the Warlock's Threadlings will return to the Warlock and travel with them if they can't find a target. Let's say I've got 3 Threadlings and I only need 2 of them to defeat an enemy. If I'm a Warlock, then the last one is going to run back, hop onto me, and condense down into a form that is orbiting me, which is known as perching. Then, the next time I attack an enemy, it's going to pop off and attack that same enemy, which really gives the sense of having these minions doing my bidding. They love me and they want to come back and hang out with me. It's not just in summoning and wielding Threadlings that Warlocks can excel. With their Strand melee attack, Warlock casts the Arcane Needle, a deadly projectile which tracks targets, causing high damage and unravelling them upon impact. And Warlock's going to be able to quickly chain 3 Arcane Needle attacks in a row. The Warlocks have 2 Strand aspects to utilise, and it's here where the Threadlings once again can enter the play. So first of all, we've got Weaver's Call. So on Riftcast, the Warlock weaves 3 Threadling eggs. They'll hatch into Threadlings when they hit a surface. Any perched Threadlings are going to be converted into additional eggs. We've got Mind Spun Evocation. So this aspect improves several of the Warlock's abilities. Then you've got Grapple. So when you execute a Grapple melee, the Warlock weaves 3 Threadling eggs from the target. You've got Threadling Grenade. You can consume your Threadling Grenade to generate a full complement of perched Threadlings. Then you've got Shackle Grenade. You can consume your Shackle Grenade to gain a buff, create a suspending detonation on every kill. The Warlock's telekinetic abilities culminate with their super, that is the Needle Storm, a deadly combination of burst damage and area denial. On cast, the Warlock conjures Strand matter into a fusillade of hardened spikes, launching them forward with a wave of their hand, and the missile will stick into enemies in the environment alike before detonating and reweaving themselves an army of Threadlings that will go hunt down survivors. Well, next up, we've got the Hunter Threadrunner. So while every Strand Guardian class will have access to the grapple and the array of mobility option it brings, the Hunter takes movement and speed to an entirely new level. From attacking multiple enemies at once while in midair using a new rope dart weapon that benefits from maximum agility. It's no wonder playing the Thread Runner has been compared to the thrill of watching a superhero come to life. The Thread Runner's melee attack, Threaded Spike, has the hunter hurling out a rope dart that bounces between enemies, damaging and severing them before returning to the hunter. Upon its return, it grants melee energy from each enemy hit, and hunters can catch the rope dart by pressing the melee input button at the right time. Affecting that timing will earn the player an additional amount of melee energy. We've got two strand aspects that are going to be available for the hunters. So first of all, we've got the ensnarling slam. So while in the air, press the air move input to slam downwards, suspending all nearby enemies. And then you got the Widow's Silk. So this aspect grants an additional grenade charge. And the Hunter's Grapple ability creates a persistent grapple tangle when it latches. And it fully refunds grenade energy when grappled to. The Hunters can use this ability to set up chains of grapple points that their entire team can use, greatly enhancing their ability to quickly move around in combat and or traverse the environment. With a lethal combination of grapple and rope dart coverage with the Threadrunner's super Silk Strike, when activated, the hunter uses their grapple to freely move around the world in a third-person view, while also throwing their rope dart to strike down enemies. Now, hunters are going to be able to use their grapple more often during their super, and the rope dart features both light and heavy attacks. The light attack is meant for single opponents and can be used in air and on the ground. And when on the ground, the hunter can also chain attacks seamlessly. Hitting an enemy with the tip of the dart deals bonus damage, and defeating an enemy with it causes the enemies to explode. And the heavy attack has the hunter swinging the rope dart around a 360-degree arc, damaging all nearby enemies. As with the light attack, this can be used on the ground or in the air. Well, finally, then, we've got the Titan Berserker. So the hulking mass of a guardian stands before a squad of enemies, ignoring their paltry taunts. Without warning, a gigantic blade made of tightly woven strand matter surrounds their hands, and she leaps into the fray, powerful blades whirring in fury, and the Titan's powerful woven gauntlet slice through scores of foes, and the enemies of humanity tremble. Yeah, from the start, the fantasy for the strand-wielding Titan Berserker was wild, untamed power. As this subclass's name suggests, the Titan uses strand in ways to maximize the carnage. Now, in-your-face attacks that can sever enemies en masse before they are permanently deleted. Well, the Titan strand melee ability is Frenzied Blades. With the press of a melee button, the Titan dashes forward and slashes at enemies with their strand-arm blades, severing victims and decreasing their damage output. With a default set of 3 charges, Titans can chain these slashes together for maximum offensive power. Well, Titans will also be able to utilize a pair of aspects. So first of all, we've got Into the Fray, destroying a tangle weave woven mail onto the Titan and nearby allies. In addition to reducing damage taken, this aspect also increases the Titan's melee energy, that is the regeneration, while also wearing the woven mail. Then we got Drenger's Lash. So while the Titan casts their class ability, the Titan will blast forward a powerful ripple in reality, suspending enemies that are caught in the shockwave's path. The Titan Berserker's super, Blade Fury, sees the Titan dual-wielding fist blades and roaming the battlefield with ill intent. The super's light attack is supercharged version of the Frenzied Blade melee attack, and each light attack that connects increases the next attack speed, and that tops out after a maximum of 3 hits. In addition, connecting the light attack and that also builds energy for the super heavy attack with each hit, and with the heavy attack, the Titan hurls a pair of projectiles forward that seeks out enemies, suspending and damaging them on impact. Now, elsewhere, Strand will see 3 new grenades, including Grapple, which is controlled with the grenade button. The Threadling grenade splits into 3 projectiles that weave onto Threadlings upon impact. The Shackle grenade effectively acts as a bowler, detonating into a suspending blast and sending out smaller secondary boluses to suspend nearby enemies. And finally, it wouldn't be a new elemental power in Destiny 2 without new fragments to explore and customize your strand-wielding Guardian. So here's a look at a few of the new fragments. Well, first of all, we've got Thread of Ascent. So activating your grenade ability reloads your equipped weapons and grants increased weapon handling and airborne effectiveness for a short time. We've got Thread of Fury, so damaging targets with a tangle grants melee energy. Thread of Finality, so finishers generate threadlings. Then you've got Thread of Warding, so picking up an orb of power grants woven mail. So, from enemy seeking threadling minions to bombastic supers to game changing new mobility options, Strand is bringing a host of unique abilities to every Guardian's arsenal. So, prepare to conjure and weave yourself in Destiny 2 Lightfall when it launches on the 28th of February 2023. Well, that is loads of information there about Strand and all the new abilities for all of our classes. Really, really exciting stuff. But let me know down in the comments what you think of Strand and which class are you going to pick first. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and for more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.